Hey everyone, today we are talking about what I wish I knew before moving to Maryland, and we're getting started right now. Welcome back to the channel where we talk about all things living in Maryland. So if that's the kind of information you're looking for, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to be notified of our new weekly videos where we talk about everything Maryland. And if you have any specific real estate questions, I am a local realtor here in Central Maryland. Feel free to reach out anytime on the number that you see on your screen. I personally take those calls and texts and love talking to anybody who has any real estate questions. So today we are talking about the things I wish I knew before moving to Maryland, and I can actually give you some real life experience here. I was born and raised in Southern California. My wife is from the greater Baltimore area here. So I'm gonna give you some things in my personal situation that I wish I actually knew. All right, first we're gonna start off with weather. So if you ask anybody living in Maryland or from Maryland, they'll tell you the same thing. It's just totally unexpected. It's totally unpredictable, and that really is the truth. So today we're sitting in just about mid-November, and we've had a couple days straight of 75-degree days, and then in the next week it's gonna be dropping down into the 40s or so. So it's just really all over the place. Winters are the same way. So we definitely get some snow. My first winter here, which was the winter of 2016, we had a 3.5-foot snowstorm, and then I think a month later we had another foot. But then last year, which would have been the winter of 2020, we had literally nothing stick. We had a couple little snowfalls, but nothing really stuck. The thing here in Maryland is that a lot of times during the night or one day it'll drop below 32 and we'll get some snow, but then it just really does not stay cold long enough. So it usually always gets back up above 32 and then it's just gone usually within 24 hours. The thing that you will see a lot more, and if you're coming from maybe the West Coast or even from the Northeast, be prepared to have your kids home a few more days a year from school. So I know in the Northeast, you guys nearly do not cancel school near as much for snow, and Maryland just it takes a very conservative approach. So we will get several days a year canceled, more for ice than actual snowfall. So they just don't want to take any chances. A lot of days a year, it usually will hover around the 32-degree mark, and they just don't want to take any chance with frozen rain coming down, and that really causes most of the delays and cancellations, more so than actual snow. Our summers get pretty hot. You can expect it to be usually on average in the mid to high 80s to low 90s is kind of a typical summer day, but when you get into mid to late August and September, it can definitely reach into the mid to high 90s. Which also brings on a good amount of humidity here in the Central Maryland area. And we do get a ton of bugs, so that's something you want to be aware of. Every time summer comes around, my wife starts asking me the same question: when are we going to screen in our porch? And we just have not gotten around to it yet. But that's something you definitely want to consider if you're not a fan of having bugs around or mosquitoes, because there's definitely a ton of those around here. But when it comes to seasons, we get them all here in Maryland. So our falls and springs are absolutely beautiful. They typically just don't ever seem to last long enough. So it seems like the winter might come on a little quickly in the fall, and then the summer sometimes feels like it comes on too quickly in the spring. But we do get it all here. Everything from snow to sleet. We get a decent amount of rain here. So that's something, if you're coming from the West Coast like me, that's something you're gonna, want to be prepared for. I was coming from having a sprinkler system just to keep my grass alive, and that is kind of a nice benefit out here. If you're coming from California, you don't need to water your grass. It just kind of, Mother Nature takes care of it for you. And then one last little side note, just to be aware of, just because this is something that I learned from personal experience. When we bought our first home here in Maryland, I wasn't really paying attention to the heat source, and home inspection revealed that we had oil heat, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's just does tend to be a little more expensive. So we have the oil heat with the baseboards. So it's just something that does cost a little more than natural gas or electric sources. So that's something you want to pay attention to, especially if the home is built before, I would say, the early 1970s. That's something that you still might see a decent amount of out here. But for the most part, if the home is early to mid 1970s and after, you're really just going to see mostly electricity and natural gas systems. Okay, let's talk taxes here in Maryland. I know I've mentioned this several times in some of the other videos, but it's worth mentioning again, depending on where you're coming from. Maryland really gets you when it comes to state income tax. So that's something that you definitely want to be aware of. If you make over $3,000 a year, which most of you are probably gonna do here in this area, you're gonna be paying in the 4.75 to 5.75 range. Most of you probably close to 5.75% state income tax. So that's something you want to be aware of. And then also, a lot of people don't realize, if you don't do your own taxes, every single county in Maryland has a local county tax. So that's something you want to be aware of. It ranges from 2.25% to 3.2%. Most of the counties in the central Maryland area, Howard County, Montgomery County, Baltimore City, are among the highest at 3.2% on top of your state income tax. So that's something you want to be aware of, and that's really kind of where they get you here in Maryland. Our sales tax isn't too bad. It's 6%, except for grocery stores. So that's nice. They don't charge sales tax on groceries. So that's something to be aware of. And then alcoholic tax is, so anything purchased at liquor stores, you're looking at 9%. And just a side note, all alcohol is sold at liquor stores, so you're not going to find it in the grocery stores like you do in some states. It's funny how that varies. So you drive 40 minutes down to Virginia, and then it's totally different. You can find it everywhere, in gas stations, your grocery stores. But here in Maryland, it's all separated. What about property taxes? Property taxes aren't too bad here in Maryland for the most part. It's around 1.1 to 1.2%. Baltimore City is definitely higher. It's close to double that. So that's something that you want to be aware of. And then throughout Maryland, there's some cities that charge, in addition to the county property taxes, charge a local city tax. So for example, Tacoma Park, Frederick, Columbia has kind of a version of that, so to speak. So that's something you want to be aware of, depending on where you may be looking. If purchasing is a goal of yours, just double check to make sure that that may not apply, or if it does, it's something that you're aware of. Okay, so something else that I wish I knew about before moving to Maryland was about their tolls. So Maryland does not have a ton of tolls, but there are a few that you want to be aware of. When I had flown out here before we actually moved here, I went down on an interview in the Rockville area, which is Montgomery County. Didn't realize that 200 was a toll. Didn't have the tolls marked off on my maps, and about a month later, my mother-in-law got a bill in the mail that she had to cover for me because I didn't realize I took a toll there. But there's a few that you want to pay attention to. 200, which I just mentioned, that will take you from 95, so that kind of gives you access to BWI and that area. That'll take you from I-95 all the way over to 270, so that'll cut you straight across if you're going to like the Frederick or up to the Gaithersburg area, which is nice. That will eliminate you from having to get onto DC's Beltway, which is 495. That's up there with traffic as much as any area in the country. So that's something that if you can avoid, that's a nice thing to do. So that will allow you to do that. It's about $4. Now there's COVID rates right now. They've reduced them for COVID, so don't quote me on those. Those will likely be changing, but that's what you can expect from that one. And then also for all Maryland tolls, Governor Hogan recently is taking them all electronic. So if they're not already, they're gonna definitely be fading out those booths, and you're gonna wanna get an easy pass. So you can get something for your dash to where it just kind of syncs up to your card, and it'll just charge your card. And that's the easiest way to do it, so that you're not having to mess with getting bills in the mail. If you don't have an easy pass, it defaults to 1.5 times the regular rate, because they're gonna have to charge you by their video recording. So that's just something you want to be aware of. It's not a huge price difference, but they will charge you more if you don't have that easy pass set up. Another toll here in Maryland is $8.95 and $95. So these are like really helpful if you are on the southeast part of Baltimore and you're trying to go straight north, right? So like, for example, if you were going up to northeast Baltimore, like maybe heading up to Philly or something like that, this is gonna allow you to go straight up and avoid taking the Beltway the long way around. So that can be helpful as well. An Easy Pass is gonna cover all of the tolls that are here in Maryland. Another one you wanna be aware of is I-50 301. So this is the Bay Bridge. So if you're going to Ocean City or Delaware for a beach summer trip, this is the one that you're gonna take. And I know for a fact this one does not have any toll booths anymore, because we took it just this past summer to Ocean City for a day trip. So you're not gonna stop at any booths. They're just gonna mail you a bill if you don't have an Easy Pass. So make sure you get an Easy Pass. All right, so what about traffic? This was like an unknown for me coming into Maryland. I didn't know what to expect, but growing up in Southern California, I figured, well, I hope it can't get worse than SoCal, right? Which was true. So it can get bad, but it's typically more like rush hour related, where it seems in some parts of the country, it's just never stops. Now the Beltway, Baltimore's Beltway 695 is something that's unpredictable. So especially around the northern parts and then the southern parts around 95, those seem to be, they just can get backed up at all hours of the day. So that's kind of weird. But other ones like a good chunk of 95, 100, 29, for the most parts, those move pretty well, especially if you're not in rush hour traffic. And with COVID and everything, they've definitely been a lot easier to deal with. Now, if you are down in Southern Maryland, Montgomery County, PG County, and you're dealing with 495, which is DC's Beltway, that is a whole nother story. Even though Baltimore and DC are only about 40, 45 miles apart, the traffic is totally different. 495 is crazy. It moves a lot less, so just be prepared for that if you're down there. But if you're up in Baltimore, it's not nearly as bad as the DC Beltway. So when it comes to summer trips, Marylanders, it's almost a staple to go to Ocean City. It's a common destination every summer for people. So this is where traffic can get really bad. So if you are heading out on a Friday afternoon, Friday evening, good luck. It's just gonna take forever. So that's something you want to be prepared for. You want to head out as early as you can, or even get out there a day early, or maybe make a later evening trip if you can. But if you are going during rush hour, it's gonna take a while. So that's something you want to be prepared for. Ocean City definitely gets crowded, to say the least. People are everywhere. There's not much sand you see when you get out there, because there's just people everywhere, and it's an awesome experience. Ocean City's boardwalk is awesome. There's tons to do. I highly recommend it. But depending on if you don't like that kind of atmosphere, then that's something you want to be prepared for. If you head just north, Ocean City is right south of the Maryland-Delaware line. So if you head just north to Bethany, some of the Delaware beaches are a little more just less crowded. If you're up for a little more of a drive, heading down to North Carolina, the Outer Banks, that's about 5.5 hours. So where Ocean City is, depending on traffic, 3.5 hours. So that's an option as well, but something to just be prepared for when you're moving here to Maryland. Okay, next, Marylanders love their sports. So you're moving to Maryland, you want to fit in like a local. Talk about the Ravens, talk about the Orioles, and you'll fit right in. The Ravens are 6-2 this year. Looks like it's going to be another good year. Last year was a huge disappointment. So talk about Lamar Jackson, talk about the Ravens, talk about the Orioles, and you will fit right in. Everybody's wishing the same thing. Lamar Jackson's got to stay healthy. Slide more, please. We cannot have another RG3 situation on our hands. So that's something I would highly recommend. And last but not least, Marylanders love their flag. This is no joke. So you will see this flag everywhere in Maryland. People just have tons of state flag pride here in Maryland. You'll see it all over people's hats, people's shirts, pants, socks. I was not prepared for that, but love it as well. So you're going to see a ton of Maryland pride out here, and that's definitely something to expect when moving to the Maryland area. Thanks so much for joining us as we discuss the things that I wish I knew before moving to Maryland. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment below or reach out directly, and hope you have a great day, and we'll see you at the next video.